Hello, I'm Elaine Stevens, and I want to welcome you to Art Beat. Unequaled, unrivaled, undisputed. These are the words of the Mad Potter of Biloxi, self-proclaimed, I might add, George Ohr. I'm standing before one of his earlier pieces that dates back to the early 1890s. But you're also going to see some work by some other potters that possibly George Ohr had inspired. We are going to meet Executive Director Denny Meacham and then take you to the Spirit of Ohr, the new location. Stay with us when Art Beat continues. And welcome back to Art Beat. In case you live on Mars, you don't know about George Ohr. Well, that's where we are today, at the temporary house thereof. And I'm standing here with a wonderful human being who, thank goodness, has been with the museum for about a year. Hails from South Carolina.
North Carolina.
Get those Carolinas mixed up. But Denny, you said you knew about Ohr in grad school. We down here are quite surprised when other people acknowledge something from our area. So how did you discover?
Well, actually, I was in a master's program in Michigan and went to an exhibition, I believe, at the Detroit Institute of Art, and they had a wonderful traveling exhibition of pottery from the arts and crafts movement at the turn of the century. And of course, George Ohr was well represented, and all of us, all of the students, all of us young grad students were just enthralled and could not believe that that kind of contemporary work was being made at such an early point, really during the late Victorian period.
Yes, and you know what? I have a little secret for y'all. Later on in the show, we're going to meet some people that are related to him, so they're going to give you the inside scoop on George. Right here now, we're standing before someone that influenced George Ohr. I don't think I've ever been exposed to that before, knowing someone who actually George learned from.
Well, actually, Biloxi, this tiny town, has a fascinating pottery history, and some think it's because of the clay, the Chutica clay. It's a high-grade clay.
Which is where the urn was made from the Chutica.
Very fine clay, very fine-grained. This work is by Joseph Meyer. He was a mentor to George Ohr, and Joseph Meyer is best known for his involvement with the Sophie Newcomb College pottery tradition.
I went there for a year, but I didn't do the pottery.
So this is quite a large piece for Meyer. It reflects an arts and crafts movement, a real interest in handmade items. It was a rejection of the Industrial Revolution that was going on about the time that this work was made. And Meyer was born in 1848 and died in 1931. So he was born before Ohr. Who was born in 1857 and died in 1918.
So did they meet?
Absolutely. George Ohr ended up in New Orleans at Newcomb College because of Joseph Meyer.
Wow.
Yes, and then but was not completely happy with his position. But some famous paintings are of George in New Orleans. The Woodward paintings are really quite wonderful, you know, descriptive works of George at the wheel. So Joseph Meyer was hugely important in his life. Joseph Meyer himself was a fine craftsman and well recognized in the American ceramic movement.
And well, he should be.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, in case we fail to mention, we are here with from the vault, the selections from the permanent collection of George Ohr, because even though this is called the Ohr O'Keeffe Museum, we actually exhibit other potters' work.
Part of the collection mission, exactly. To understand how important George Ohr's work is, it's always good to have a frame of reference by work by other artists from around the world, not just American work. And so I think that one of the major mission emphasis we have is the strong emphasis on ceramics. And so if it's made from clay, you know, it can usually find some interest here at the museum.
That's fantastic. Let's move on to the next piece over there and tell us a little bit about it. It's absolutely beautiful.
This lovely, delicate, sort of floating bowl was made by Manuel Jelanovich. And Jelanovich was mentored by Ohr. So you have three generations.
Wow.
Right.
So we've got Meyer influencing Ohr.
And Ohr influencing Jelanovich. Okay. Jelanovich actually, just by some strange coincidence, left Biloxi and moved to Bedford, New York, which is a tiny town, just as tiny as Biloxi was in his day. And I lived there for about 11 years before I moved to North Carolina. So I just thought this is a strange connection. But Jelanovich lived and worked in Bedford and then moved to California. And he's very famous. He and his partner were very famous for the tile work they did as part of the arts and crafts movement.
Well, this color is so vivid.
Yeah, brilliant color.
Just brilliant color. I mean, it makes you think of the blue waters of the Gulf.
Absolutely. So he was very driven and very influenced by the work of Ohr.
Well, this room is just brimming with artistic energy, and what we're going to do when we come back from our short break from Art Beat is we're going to take you to the Orient. So stay with us. And welcome back to Art Beat. My guest today is Denny Meekum. She's the executive director of the Ohr Museum. We're at the temporary House of Ohr, but we're going to be moving shortly. But before we do, let's talk more about some of the collections here in what we call the permanent collection of the Ohr. So.
Exactly. Because of the museum's interest in all things ceramic, there is a great interest in collecting Asian ceramics, which were the earliest influence, certainly on European ceramics. This particular piece is Korean. It was made during a workshop at the Ohr and by Shuge, and in 2004. And then we have two pieces, the matching pieces. This particular drip on the shoulder is wood ash.
Wow.
All potters, including Ohr and Meyer and Jelanovich, all potters prior to electricity and electric kilns, fired with wood ash. In the Asian tradition, it becomes a mark of beauty. In the European-American tradition, the pots were protected in saggers, so you seldom see the mark of the ash. But this is a wheel-produced piece with paddle and coil.
Do we know
Korean.
what it says?
I don't.
But it is, I tell you, when you walk into this room on Sweatman Street in Biloxi, which we urge you to do, this is a true eye catcher. Caught my eye right away. And I love the way you caress this piece of art, because with pottery you can do that.
You really can. It's very tactile. Pottery is extremely tactile. And it's very interesting because the Asian tradition honors what we want to call the happy accident, where the ash drips onto the piece and the ash melts at 2,400 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's a bit of the accident in the way the whole piece comes together in the kiln.
It's sort of a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing.
It's a happy accident is the way they live their lives.
That's right, that's right. And the American and European tradition is there's far more control involved, yes.
Well, of course, I cannot leave today without talking about my favorite
I was going to say, this is your favorite.
So colorful, Jenny. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. This was the gift of the artist, Patrick Crabb. It is called Plate Shard Series, and it's really made to look as if it was actually broken and put back together again. And there were purposely to get that sort of dynamic quality.
That means I can do that at home a lot.
Absolutely, just re-glue. There's some very famous painters that glue broken plates. Schnabel glues broken plates to canvas. At any rate, this is a wonderful piece of contemporary work. It does not have, for the most part, the glossy finish that was so admired for 200 years in the European and American tradition. It's a very natural finish, sort of matte, and graphically really exciting. So it's a much more contemporary piece, and yet shares some of the spontaneity that this piece has.
I mean, it has that wonderful pizzazz and color.
Right.
Now we're going to turn the wheel completely on the other side and go visit a Japanese master.
Yes.
As we walk across the room here. So what have we here other than an amazing contrast?
Well, exactly. We have a very quiet body of work by probably one of the most recognized and famous potters in the world, and that is Shoji Hamada, who was a national treasure in Japan. And Shoji Hamada introduced the large climbing kilns of the Orient to American potters. And so it's really, it's a sort of a potter thing, but that whole sort of 60s experimenting with glaze and glazes and kilns really started with this man. So he's
Shoji Hamada.
Shoji Hamada.
I love saying that. Yes. Shoji Hamada.
And that's wood ash. That decoration there?
Oh, that is lovely.
That's wood ash painted on the glaze.
So it's a similar technique,
but far more control.
Far more control. Now the glaze is very intense on this too.
It is called saturated iron. More information than you need. Actually, Hamada really established a craft village called Mashiko in Japan, which still exists. So
So
it
next
honors
time-
the Japanese crafts.
So next time you're having a bowl of soup out of one of those beautiful pots, wherever you may get them, consider the artistry that's involved. And when we return with Art Beat, we're going to take you to the model of the new museum, and then we have more surprises for you right after this. Welcome back to Art Beat, and we're standing before the model of the Ohr Museum of Art. It looks delectable, almost like a cream puff when you look at it like this. But you do such a wonderful job in presenting it to our local civic clubs, Denny, so tell us about it.
Well, I think one of the things that makes this project so unique is it's the first project that Frank Gehry has ever done that completed a campus with separate buildings.
Wow.
So what we will be opening in November of 2010, a year from now, is the Mississippi Sound Welcome Center. This stairway has just been poured. It is stunning. The IP Casino Resort Spa Exhibitions Building.
Very proud of that one.
And the African American Gallery. And we really feel like the buildings themselves are art objects that really are part of our collection.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
and that's how
I mean, that is really what one of the issues that we will be providing for our visitors is really to help them understand what this project is about. This is the Pleasant Reed House, the interpretive center.
Yes.
The house itself was the first building moved to the site honoring Pleasant Reed, an emancipated African American who moved to Biloxi after the Civil War.
Which is currently open for viewing.
It's currently open by appointment, and it was destroyed by Katrina,
Yes.
but rebuilt in honor of Pleasant Reed. And we have the Mississippi Sound the Center for Ceramics.
Okay.
With the Maryland Staircase.
Notice how she plays with all these little
That's
pieces.
right. These are our toys. It's like our model train without the train. And then, of course, the whole heart of the campus are the George Ohr pods.
Wow.
And
yeah,
Frank Gehry has an Ohr piece in his collection. And he said he designed the pods, it's difficult to tell, but they're twisted. And Frank designed these in honor of the twists in George Ohr's work. So this is really quite a wonderful homage, and this is a glass atrium, which you cannot see now.
Of course not.
But we will connect all of the pods so they really act as one building. So we have, we actually have 5 Frank Gehrys, the Pleasant Reed House, and across the street, the Biloxi Cottage, the Creel House, which will house our administrative
An
offices.
entire campus of art and beauty. Now, Denny, we don't have time to drive there during this show, so we're going to take a quick journey. If you just come on over here,
Absolutely.
I'm going to have my magical photographer beam us over to the new site of the Ohr O'Keeffe. Okay, Josh, do your magic. Beam us over to the construction site at the Ohr O'Keeffe, okay? That was quite a ride. My hair is a mess. Do I have both of my earrings on? So do you.
One is back at the Ohr.
Okay. Well, here we are standing at the future site of the Ohr O'Keeffe Museum. 4 years ago, there was a barge sitting right here in this construction site, and 1 year, nearly to the day of today, this place, 3 of the 5 of the Gehry design buildings will be opened to the public. So there is a lot of action going on here, not just construction, but a back of the house type of things with fundraising and all that sort of thing. Do tell us what's happening.
It's very exciting, and we really are thrilled to be a part of all of this. The Mississippi Sound Welcome Center, the IP Resort Casino Spa Exhibitions Gallery, and the African American Gallery are the 3 buildings that will be opening.
Yes.
The Pleasant Reed House has been rebuilt and is ready for visitors. And this will all be a brick plaza.
Wow.
So
amazing.
I just want everyone to know that if they'd like to participate as a member, they can purchase a $100 membership, and we will place an inscribed brick with the message of their choosing as part of the plaza. Or you could give that same $100 to the capital campaign and receive a brick as well. We really believe that we are building a platform here for the future of Mississippi. And we are excited to be, really excited to be a part of what really is a whole new period of growth for the Gulf Coast.
It truly is. And the Capital Campaign, I'm privileged enough to serve on the board of directors for the Ohr and to be a part of IP Casino and to acknowledge once again their $1 million contribution to the Capital Campaign and to this wonderful facility behind us. It is all exciting. You can't keep from smiling. And then, of course, we have the gala next week.
Yes, one of our major fundraisers. It is hosted entirely by the Beau Rivage. There's a 4-course meal and an open bar and wonderful silent auction items. Big Bad Voodoo Daddy will be the band, and it's going to be a great, great evening. And if you're interested in the gala or in joining or supporting the Capital Campaign, you can go to our website, georgeohr.org, or you can call the museum at 228-374-5547.
Just so much going on, and it's such a worthwhile contribution. The Let Them Eat Cake theme, I think, is fascinating. It sort of suits the mode of Ohr himself, his personality. But the Ohr galas are always a lot of fun. Now, I know that Julie Gustafson has done an enormous job on this. Judy Steckler is the chair. We want to acknowledge all of their work that they're doing on the gala. And if you get a chance to come, don't miss it. Right after we take a break, we're going to come back. We've got a little bit of a surprise for you.
Oh.
And we're going to meet some very special people. So stay with us. And welcome back to Art Beat. In case you have just joined us, we have been in the spirit of Ohr, and my guest today has been Denny Meekum. But I have two special guests with me that are joining us for the conclusion of Art Beat. First, Miss Dot Moran, who's the great-granddaughter of George Ohr, and Mr. T.J. Moran, who is the great-great-grandson of George Ohr. Now, and tell us why you're here today. I know you don't live here, right here on this site, even though you are part of the Ohr family, but you are visiting with us.
Elaine, we're here today because about 3 weeks ago we held the first ever George Ohr family reunion right here in Biloxi, and we have two special plaques we'd like to present. Denny here with the museum and you with the IP for your tremendous help that y'all had in both making this such a great success for our first ever Ohr family reunion. And Denny, we'd like to present this to you.
Thank you. This is so wonderful. I don't know if the camera can capture this, but there are all the descendants that attended the first annual George Ohr family reunion. What an honor. And may I add that the museum and IP Casino together partnered on the opening night reception. So, but before we leave everyone today on Art Beat, I have to ask, I know that George used to ride around Biloxi with that long handlebar mustache wrapped around his ears, blowing in the wind on his motorcycle. But when was it that you discovered you were part of a true artistic legacy?
I didn't realize it until I was probably about 10 years old, and I was at the family house and the art studio that used to be down on Porter Avenue.
Remember it well.
And we sold art, not pottery. And there was two cabinet cases that had pottery, and they were always behind lock and key. And I never understood what these pieces were or why we had them at the studio.
Very mysterious.
And finally, I asked my grandfather, who was George Ohr's grandson, I said, what is all this? What is it? You know, I just thought it was, you know, sculptures or little stuff you do in kindergarten. You know, I didn't know it was George Ohr's work. And so I asked him what it was, and he explained to me that George Ohr back in the 1900s was a famous potter here in Biloxi, and this was some of his work that was given personally to him. And that's when I realized that this must be a really special man and have some really great artwork to be under such lock and key, and not even to let us touch it or look at it or do anything, but to see it, that this was an amazing work that he did. And after that, I started to I got to go to the museum, and actually I think around that time was the first ever Ohr Festival. And I remember going to that and making pottery and stuff like that. And that's when I realized I was part of something bigger than just little pieces of pottery.
And you truly are. And thanks to people like you and Dot and Denny and the board of directors for the Ohr, we all are a part of this. And we all are a part of the beautiful artistic worldwide future of this museum, and it has come to Biloxi, Mississippi. We're so grateful. So we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you for the honor of being a part of your first annual reunion. If you would like to be a part of Art Beat, you can email us at www.wkfk.com and let us know what you'd like to see. And I'll be glad to feature your best artists here, right here on Art Beat. See you next week.